Hello, my name is Mayanka. I am accounts and a finance trainer from Uplatz. Today in this class, we will discuss the provisions for filing of income tax return and self-assessment. This is one of the important topic of Income Tax Act. Filing of income tax return and self-assessment of tax. Section 139 in this class, we will discuss section 139 of such topic. Section 139 will contain the provision which is relating to the filing of return of income. It is contain the provision which is relating to the filing of return of income. So now we will start our discussion on section 139. Return of income. Return of income. So, as per the provision of Income Tax Act, the Income Tax Act 1961 contain the provision which are related to the filing of return of income. Means any person who is calculating the income which is taxable under the Income Tax Act, then such person will file the return of income. Or if there is any person who does not have any income, but if he file his return of income, he can file return of income. As per the provision of Income Tax Act, there are the provision means the Income Tax Act 1961 contain the provision which is related to the filing of return of income. The income tax return is a statement or it is a format in which the assessee provide the information. In which the assessee provide the information about his income, about the total income and tax liability which is required to be paid by assessee. Means the return of income, it is a format. It is a format by which the assessor will provide the information about the income which is earned by him during the previous year in the different or under a different head of income, and it will also provide the information about the total income of the assessee. Advance tax, how much advance tax is paid by the assessee, and TDS, all the details are submitted by him or submitted by the assessee in his return of income. There are the, as per the provision of Income Tax Act, there are the different format for the different assessees. Means the format of filing of return of income different for the different assessee, and these formats are defined by the CBDT. Just like that, I will show you the format of return of income. The form of return of income will contain just like that. Just like that, it will contain all the information. Means it will contain the name of the assessee, amount of income, it will contain just like name of the assessee, the gross total income of the assessee, the gross total income of the assessee, deductions. Means just like ITR 5. This is the ITR 5, and there are ITR 1, ITR 2, ITR 3, ITR 7. According to the person, it is required to be filed. According to the person, it is required to be filed. So the CBDT provides the different format for the different assessees. The ITR means these form will contain the information about the income which is earned by the assessee under the each head of income. It will also contain the information about the gross total income. It will also contain the information about the deductions. It will also contain the total amount of income which will be taxable under the Income Tax Act, and it will also contain if there is any clubbing income. It will also contain the particular means the basic information of the assessee. It will also contain the total income and the tax which is required to be payable by the assessee. It will also contain the information of advance tax, TDS, TCS. All the information will be contained by such assessee. In short, the return of income is the declaration of the income and the resultant tax by the assessee in the prescribed format. Means it is nothing, it is only a format which will contain the information of the income which is earned by the assessee, and it is the format which will contain all the basic information of the assessee. It will contain the information about the, it will contain the information about the return of about the income of the assessee, tax of the assessee, advance tax which is already paid by the assessee, TDS and TCS. All the information will be available in such format. In such format. So, as per the provision of Income Tax Act, the income tax will provide, or there are many formats. There are different formats which are specified by the CBDT according to the assessee. According to the assessee, in the case if there is any assessee who is earning the salary income, then the ITR 1 will be applicable for him. Means according to the head of income, the ITR form will be applicable. Compulsory filing of return of income, section 139 subsection 1. Compulsory filing of return of income. Compulsory filing of return of income. If there is an organization, whether it is working or not, there is a company, whether working or not, then it is required to be filed the return of income compulsorily. It is required to file the return of income compulsorily as per section 139 subsection 1. The return of income in the case of companies, in the case of firm, the return of income is required to be filed mandatorily whether there is any amount of profit or there is any loss. And such a return of income is required to be filed on or before the due date, the date which is specified under section 139 subsection 1. Means every company, every firm, whether it is earning the profit or loss, whether it is earning the amount of profit or loss, but the income tax return is required to be filed. It is mandatorily, it is compulsorily for the firm and the company to file the income tax return, to file the income tax return. And such income tax return is required to be filed on or before the due date, due date of filing of income tax. In the case of person other than company and other than firm, means other than company and the other than firm, the person will also require, every person will require to file his return of income mandatorily. And such return of income is required to be filed on or before the due date, of filing of return of income. If the total income, if the total income or the total income of the assessee, if the total income of the assessee is exceed the basic exemption limit. Means if, for the example, there is a organization XYZ Limited. There is a organization XYZ Limited. In the case of company, it is a company. In the case of company, whether the company earn the amount of profit, whether the company earn the amount of loss, whether the company earn the amount of profit or whether the company earn the amount of loss. In all the cases, the company is required to file his return of income. Means XYZ mandatorily file its return of income. It is mandatorily filed to his return of income, mandatorily, whether the loss or whether the amount of profit, whether the amount of loss or whether the amount of profit. In the case of other than company, just like there is a person, Mr. Ram, and his total income, is 7,50,000. Then he is mandatorily required to file the return of income. For the example, his total income is only 2,25,000. Then he is not required to file return of income because the amount of the income is less than basic exemption limit. The basic exemption limit is The basic exemption limit is 2,50,000. Means that up to 2,50,000, no tax is required to be paid. So the tax will be zero. So in this situation, the assessee will not be required to file the return of income. But if the assessee is required to file his return of income mandatorily, then he will file, then the assessee will file the return of income on or before the due date of filing of return of income. Means the return of income is required to be filed on or before the due date. On or before the due date. So normally the due dates are normal. Just like in the case of individual 31st July, 31st July. In the case of company, the books of required to be audited. In the case of company or in the case of individual whose books of account are required to be audited. In the case of business, it is 30 September. Normally, in the case when there is an international transaction, transaction, then 30 November. Means it is depend upon the situation. It is depend upon the situation means the return of income of any of the assets is required to be filed on or before the due dates, on or before the due dates of filing of return of income. Due dates of filing of return of income. So if there is any company, if there is any firm which is in existence, or whether the amount of profit or loss which is earned by the organization, but such organizations will file its return of income. But if there is any person other than firm and other than company, if the total income of such assessee is more than basic exemption limit, then such assessee is required to file his return of income, and the return of income is required to be filed on or before the due date of filing of return of income. Means these return of income is required to be filed on or before the due dates. So every person who is a resident of India other than non-ordinary resident of India, within the meaning of section 6 subsection 6, who is not required to furnish the return of income under section 139 subsection 1, and would be required to file a return of income or loss for the previous year in the prescribed form and verified in the prescribed manner on or before the due date. If such person at any time during the previous year, is that if there is any person, means every person who is a resident other than ordinarily resident. If there is a person, he is a resident of India, but he is not ordinarily resident of India. Means he is a resident of India, but not ordinarily resident of India. Then he is not the resident of, means he is not ordinarily resident of India, who is not required to furnish return of income under section 139 subsection 1. Then he would be required to file a income or loss for the previous year in the prescribed form. Means there is a person who is not a resident of India. He is a resident of India, but he is not ordinarily resident of India within the meaning of section 6 subsection 6, and who is not required to file his return of income as per section 139 subsection 1. The assessee is not required to file his return of income, then he would require to file. Then such assessee is required to file a return of income or a return of loss for the previous year in the prescribed manner, and it should be verified. And such a form is required to be filed, or such a return is required to be filed on or before the due date of filing of return of income if the such assessee during the previous year hold as a beneficiary owner. He is as a beneficial owner, or otherwise he is the beneficial owner or otherwise of any assets located outside India, and has a signing authority in any account which is located outside India means if such assessee, he is the beneficial owner. If such assessee is the beneficial owner of any asset, the asset which is located in outside India, or he has the signing authority. He has a signing authority in any account which is located outside India, then such person is required to be filed his return of income in India. Or he is the beneficial owner of any asset, the asset which is located in outside India, then he will also require to file his return of income. Then he will also require to file his return of income means if there is any person who is the resident but not ordinary resident and he is not required to file the return of income, but he has the beneficial owner means he is the beneficial owner of any interest, the of any assets. He is the beneficial owner or otherwise of any asset. Then as such asset is located in outside India, or he is the beneficial owner of any asset which is located outside India, or he has the signing authority in any bank account and such bank account is located outside India, then such person is required to file his return of income. Then such assessee is required to file his return of income. File his return of income is that if there is an individual who is the beneficiary of any assets and the asset is located outside India, means however an individual who is the beneficially owner of any assets and such assets is located outside India would not be required to file his return of income under this clause, where his income, if any, arising from such assets is included in India of the person which is referred in A in the accordance with the provision of Income Tax Act means if for such individual he is the beneficial owner of the assets and the asset is located in outside India, then such person shall not be required to file his return of income if the income from such assets, if the income of such asset which is earning from such assets is included in the income of the person means the income is included in the total income of such beneficiary owner. If for the example the earning from such assets is 5,000 rupees and such 5,000 rupees is included in his total income in the beneficiary income in India, then such person then such a person, such individual is not required to file his return of income. Then such person is not required to file his return of income means there is a meaning that if there is any income which is relating to which is arise in India, then such income will be taxable in India. Then such income will be taxable in India. If such income is included in the another person who is a beneficial owner of such asset, then the individual who is taking of such assets or who is resident of India but not ordinary resident of India, then such income will not be taxable or such person will not be required to file his return of income under the income tax act. Under the income tax act. Meaning of first we will discuss meaning of now we will discuss the meaning of beneficiary owner and beneficiary. So beneficiary owner means the individual who has provided directly or indirectly consideration for the assets for the immediate or future benefit, direct or indirect, of himself or another person means that there is an individual and such individual he is providing directly or indirectly any consideration, who is providing directly or indirectly any amount of consideration for the asset, for the intermediate, for the benefit, for the future benefit, for the intermediate or for the future benefits, or directly or indirectly of himself or any other person, then he will be known as beneficiary. Then it will be known as beneficiary owner. And the beneficiary means an individual who derives the benefit from the asset. If there is a person who is earning, who is taking the benefit from such assets during the previous year, and the consideration for such assets has been provided by another person, means just an example, there is a person, Mr. Ram, he has an asset. For the example, there is a assessee, Mr. Ram, and he has a assets. He has a assets. and he provides such assets to any person, to any person. So it's like to any trust, and such a trust provide the benefit to Mohan. Means the benefit which is earned by the trust from such assets are provided by the trust to the Mohan. Means the Mohan, he is using the benefit, or he is taking the benefit from such assets. He is taking the benefit from such assets. So in this situation, Mr. Ram will be considered as beneficial owner, and Mr. Mohan will be considered as beneficiary. Mr. Ram considered as beneficial owner, and Mr. Mohan, he will be considered as beneficiary owner, beneficiary. So the beneficiary means the individual who is driving the benefit, who drives the benefit from such assets during the previous year, and the consideration from such assets had been provided by such any person or other than beneficiary. So this is the meaning and the definition of beneficiary owner and beneficiary. So requirement of filing of return of income as per 4th and 5th provision of section 139. As per this provision, the person who is a resident of India but not ordinary resident of India within the meaning of section 6 subsection 6 of Income Tax Act, he is not required to file his return of income under section 139. Such as he who is not required to file his return of income under section 139 subsection 1, and who at any time during the previous year, at any time during the previous year, number 1, hold as beneficiary owner or otherwise of any assets, including financial instrument or financial assets or financial interest in any entity, and such asset is located outside India, means he is as a beneficiary owner. He is a beneficiary owner of any assets. Number 2, he has a signing authority. He has a signing authority in any account, the account which is located outside India, in any account which is located outside India, which is located outside India. And number two, there is a beneficiary. And number 2, there is a beneficiary of any asset, including financial interest in entity, which is located outside India. Which is located outside India. Then in this situation, when there is any income, if he is the beneficiary, if he is the beneficiary of any assets, if he is the beneficiary of any assets, and the assets is located outside India, and there is any income from such asset, and such income is included in the beneficiary owner's income. It is included means he is earning the benefit of, for example, 2 lakh rupees, but such 2 lakh rupees are added. It is included by Mr. Ram in his total income. Then the Mohan is not required to file his return of income. Means he is not required to file his return of income. So the income which is earned, which is arise from such assets, and if it is included in the hands of beneficiary owner, then such beneficiary is not required to file his return of income. Then such beneficiary is not required to file his return of income if such income is included by the beneficiary owner in his total income. In his total income. In his total income. So every person being an individual, HUF, AOP, and BOI, whether incorporated or not, or a artificial judicial person, is that if there is any assessee who is the individual, HUF, AOP, BOI, or any artificial judicial person whose total income of any person in the respect of which he is assessable under this act during the previous year without giving the effect of provision of chapter 6A or section 54, 54B, 54D, 54EC, 54F, means capital gain section, exceed the basic exemption limit if there is any person whose total income or the total income of any other provision of any other person in the respect of which he is assessable, means if there is any provision of clubbing also, and without giving the deduction under chapter 80C, sorry, under chapter 6A, or without giving the deduction under section 54, 54B, 54D, 54EC, 54F, and the amount is more than, and the income is more than BC exemption limit, then such assessee is required to file his return of income. Then such assessee is required to file the return of income, and such a return of income is required to be filed on or before the due date of filing of return of income, and such a return of income is required to be filed in the prescribed form and in the prescribed, it should be filed in the prescribed form and prescribed manner. Means if the total income of the assessee is more than basic exemption limit, then the assessee is required to file his return of income. The basic exemption limit is 2,50,000. The basic exemption limit is 2,50,000 in the case of individual HUF, AOP, BOI, and artificial judicial person. And in the case of senior citizen, the basic exemption limit is 3 lakh rupees. In the case of resident person who is the resident of India, individual who is the resident of India means the person whose age, the individual whose age is more than 60 years but less than 80 years. And in the case when there is an assessee whose age is 80 years or more than 80 years, in the case of individual whose age is 80 years or more than 80 years, and such assessee, then the assessee will be known as super senior citizen. Then in the case of super senior citizen, the basic exemption limit is 5 is 5 rupees. So if the assessee whose total income is more than basic exemption limit, then such assessee is required to file the return of income. This amount donates the levied of total income of the assessee, which is arrived at after claiming the deduction under chapter 6A and exemption under section 54, 54B, 54D, 54EC, and 54F. However, the level of total income of the assessee is to be considered for the purpose of filing of return of income. Filing of return of income means we will calculate how much income will be there only for the purpose of filing of return of income, whether the provision of filing of return of income section 139 subsection 1 is applicable on such assessee or not. Any other person other than company and firm, if there is any person other than company and firm and who is not required to file his return of income under section 139 subsection 1, if there is any assessee, if there is any individual, he is not required to file the return of income under section 139 subsection 1, then is required to file income tax return in the prescribed form and in the prescribed manner on or before the due date. If during the previous year such person, means if there is any person who is a individual, HUF, AOP, BOI, any artificial judicial person, means other than company or general firm, and such person is not required to file the return of income as per the provision of section 139 subsection 1, not required to file the return of income as per section 139 subsection 1, then such assessee is required to file the return of income on or before the due date of filing of return of income if during the previous year, number one, he has deposited an amount or aggregate of the amount which is more than 1 crore, in one or more current account which is maintained by or with the banking company or cooperative bank. Means if there is an individual, he has deposited 1 crore rupees or more than 1 crore rupees in the current account, one or more current account, the current account which are maintained by the banking company or by the cooperative bank, then such assessee shall be eligible, then such assessee shall be liable to file the return of income, then such assessee is required to file the return of income when he has deposited an amount, the amount is 1 crore or more than 1 crore in the current account. Amount more than 1 crore, not 1 crore means more than 1 crore. If the assessee deposit the total amount, aggregate amount more than 1 crore in one current account or more than one current account during the previous year, and such current account is maintained by the banking company or the cooperative bank, then such assessee is required to file the return of income. Number 2, has incurred expenditure of an amount exceeding to the amount 2 lakh rupees for himself or any other person for the travel of foreign currency. Means if there is any person who has incurred the expenditure, who has incurred the total amount of expenditure which is more than 2 lakh rupees for himself or for any other person for the travel to the foreign country. Travel to the foreign country means if there is any person who incurred more than 2 lakh rupees for himself or for any other person for the purpose of foreign trip, for the purpose of foreign travel, then such person is also required to file his return of income. Then such a person is required to file his return of income. Or the person he has incurred expenditure of an amount or aggregate of an amount more than 1 lakh towards the consumption of electricity. If there is any SIC who has spent, who has incurred more than 1 lakh rupees toward the consumption of electricity, means the electricity bill of the year is more than 1 lakh, then such SIC is required to file his return of income. Then such SIC is required to file his return of income. And to file such a return of income, the return of income is required to be filed in the prescribed form and in the prescribed manner on or before the due date of filing of return of income, and he will also fulfill all other specific conditions and prescribed conditions which are given in Income Tax Act. He will also fulfill such other prescribed condition and prescribed condition and all other detail and information which are required to be fulfilled by the assessee. Means if the assessee he has deposited more than 1 crore rupees during the previous year in the current account, in any of the current account, means one current account or more than one current account, then he is required to file his return of income. And if there is an assessee he has incurred more than 2 lakh rupees on himself or another person for to a foreign trip, or he has incurred or the assessee has incurred more than 1 lakh rupees towards the consumption of electricity, then such person is required to file his return of income, or fulfill such other prescribed condition, then such person will be required to file his return of income as per the provision of Income Tax Act. All other person which are mentioned in point 1 to 5 means all these person from 1 to 5, from 1 to 5 should they are furnished the return of income, they will furnish the return of income or income of such person during the previous year in the prescribed form and verified in the prescribed manner, and setting forth such other provision as they prescribe. Means all the person who are mentioned under the point 1 to 5 above, they are required to file their return of income on or before the due date of filing of his return of income. They will furnish the return of income or the income of such person of the other person, means they will file the return of income for his income as well as for the income of the other person if the income of other person is clubbed in his case. And such a return of income is required to be filed on or before the due date of filing of return of income, and it should be filed under the prescribed mode. It should be filed as per the prescribed. Now, what will be the due date of filing of return of income? What will be the due date of filing of return of income? It is 31st October. The due date means 31st October of the assessment year where the assessee other than the assessee which is given below. Means first date is 31st October of the assessment year where the assessee other than assessee which is referred to in second below. Means in the first point the due date of filing of return of income is 31st October in the case of company, and the person whose accounts are required to be audited under the Income Tax Act or any other law for a time being in force. Means in the case of company or in the case of person whose books of accounts are required to be audited, whose books of accounts are required to be audited by the chartered accountant under the provision of Income Tax Act or under the provision of any other law, then such assessee, then such company or the firm whose accounts are required to be audited by the chartered accountant under the provision of Income Tax Act or under the any other law, then these assessee will file his return of income, will file the return of income on or before the 31st October. Means in the case of company, number two, any individual AOP, HUF, AOP, BY means other than company whose books of accounts are required to be audited, whose books of accounts are required to be audited by the chartered accountant under the provision of Income Tax Act. Then such person is required to file his return of income on or before 31st October. And the partnership firm, there is a partnership firm whose accounts are also required to be audited, whose accounts are also required to be audited under the Income Tax Act or under the any other provision of this act. Then such person is such person is required to file his return of income, and the income is required to be filed on or before 31st October. Such return is required to be filed on or before the 31st October of the assessment year. 31st October of the assessment year, the return is required to be filed by these assessors. 30 November. 30 November of the assessment year, in case where the assessee who is required to furnish the report, which is referred in section 92E, means if there is any international transaction, and in the respect of such an international transaction, when there is a requirement to furnish the report under section 92E, then the assessee will file the return on or before 30 November, on or before 30 November of the assessment year. Means for the assessment year 2019-20, the return is required to be filed till 30 November, till 30 November 2020. In the case of other case, the date is 31st July. The date is 31st July of the assessment year. Means for the financial year 2019-20, in the case of individual whose books of accounts are not required to be audited, then he is required to file his return of income on or before 31st July of the assessment year. Means if he want to file the return of income for the financial year 2019-20, then the date of filing of return of income will be till 31st July 2020. Till 31st July 2020. So these are the due dates for filing of return of income. Now we will discuss an example. Paras, whose age is 55 years and he is a resident of India. There is a assessee Paras. His age is 55 years. 55 years. And he is a resident of India. In the financial year 2020 and 21, 20 and 21, he has the income. He has the income interest of 2,88,000 was credited to his non-resident account with SBI. Interest 2,28,000, 2,28,000, so 2,88,000, sorry. And it is credited in his NRE account, with the SBI. And 30,000 rupees being the amount of interest on fixed deposit with SBI. It is credited in NRE account. And interest on FD. Interest on FD 30,000 rupees. 30,000 rupees was credited to his saving bank account during the period. He is also earned 3,000 rupees as interest on his saving bank account. Interest on saving bank. It is 3,000. It is 3,000. So there is a issue that whether the Paras is required to file his return of income or not. Whether the Paras is required to file his return of income or not. And what will be your answer? What will be change in your answer if he has incurred 3 lakh rupees as travel expense? As travel expense of self or spouse to the US to stay with his daughter marriage for the same time. Means such assessee has incurred 3 lakh rupees as the travel expenses to self, to his or for his wife, to the USA, to the US to stay with his daughter, with his married daughter for the same time. So in this situation, As per the provision of Income Tax Act, if there is any assessee whose total income before giving the effect of Chapter 6A and before giving the effect of section 54, 54B, 54C, 54D and 54EC, if it is more than basic exemption limit. If it is more than basic exemption limit, then such person is required to file his return of income. Then such person is required to file his return of income. So in this case, as per the provision, the amount of income which is earned by the assessee is this: 2,88,000 NRE account, interest in NRE account, FD 30,000 rupees, and interest on saving bank account 3,000 rupees. So in this situation, his income is the income of the assessee. The income of the assessee will be before giving the effect of 80C, because under chapter 6A, because under chapter 6A it will be exempted, it will be deductible under section 80A. But before giving the deduction, the income is only 30,000 rupees. The income is only 30,000 rupees, means the income is only 30,000 rupees before giving the deduction. And if we provide a deduction, then the income will be 30,000 only. 30,000 only. So in this situation, it is less than. So in this situation, the total income will become 30,000. It will become 30,000. So the NRE account 2,28,000 rupees will be exempted because it is exempted under section 10, subsection 4, second. Assuming that the PARS has been permitted by the RBI, so it will be exempted. So the other income will be 33,000, and after provided reduction is 30,000, which is less than basic exemption limit. The basic exemption limit is 2,50,000. Such amount is less than basic exemption limit. Then Mr. Paras, in this situation, Mr. Paras is not required to file his return of income. Mr. Paras, he is not required to file his return of income. But so since the total taxable income of the Paras before giving the effect of chapter 6A is less than basic exemption limit, then he is not required to file the return of income. He is not required to file the return of income. So there is a note that in the aforesaid solution, in the above solution, interest of 2,88,000 earned from non-resident NRE account has been taken as exempted on the exemption that, on the basis of this exemption that the Paras has permitted by the RBI. However, in case he has not been so permitted, then the interest will be taxable. And if we will tax the interest also, then the total income will be 3,12,000, which is more than 2,50,000. Or if we provide the deduction, then it will be 3,28,000, and it is more than 2,50,000. Then such assessee is required to file the return of income because the income is more than basic exemption. Because his income is more than basic exemption. So the assessee is required to file the return of income if it is assumed that Mr. Paras, he is not authorized, it is not permitted, or it is not authorized by the Reserve Bank of India. So if there is any assessee, he has incurred more than 2 lakh rupees on the foreign trip of himself or another person, then he is mandatorily required to file the return of income. So in this case, Mr. Paras, he has incurred 3 lakh rupees, which is more than 2 lakh, 3 lakh rupees on foreign travel of himself or his spouse. Then he is required to file his return of income on or before the due date of filing of return of income, means he is required to file the return of income mandate. So on the basis of such an example, we have understood how we will identify whether the person is required to file the return of income or not. So on the basis of this discussion, we have understand section 139 subsection 1. The person who are required to file the return of income and the date of filing of return of income. This section is very much important because normally each and every person is required, when who is required to file a return of income, he want to know about the due dates for filing of return of income, and whether he is required to file a return of income or not. So there are some other provisions which are relating to such a topic. We will discuss in our next videos. Kindly consider all the videos so that you can properly understand such concept. Thank you so much for watching this video. Okay, bye bye and have a nice day.